It started with a transmission, not the usual scrambled ping or static-choked carrier wave that marked the edge of human territory. This was clear, confident, and structured. It arrived at 0327 from listening post 7V, flagged by the AI and elevated by an Escher officer who understood enough human idioms to be worried. The voice was human. Young. Too young. Copy that. Fire Team Beta. Perimeter set. First aid station active. Repeat. First aid station is up and staffed. Over. There was laughter in the background. Not cruelty, not taunting. Joy. But the structure was unmistakable team code names, role assignments, situation reports. Another voice replied, crisp and coordinated. Alpha 2, this is Orion Base. Rations are prepped and badge check starts at 0800. Comm silence at lights out. Acknowledge. The system flagged the words badge check as ceremonial, but cross-referenced Fire Team and Orion Base with known GC and human military jargon. The flag was escalated within 2 minutes. By the time the file reached Fleet Intelligence Command, 4 other transmissions had been intercepted, all with similar cadence, discipline, and unsettling brevity. No civilian chatter, no music, no idle comms loops. This was not a random camp. This was a structured deployment. In disputed space. Escher. Strategic Response Directive 14 Black was invoked within the hour. Command suspected what no one wanted to say out loud. Humanity had established a forward training base, a hidden commando facility, possibly experimental, possibly juvenile indoctrination, possibly worse. They tasked Ghost Pattern 9, a deep infiltration unit with a confirmed success record across 4 planetary war zones and 2 treaty-violating incursions. Silent insertion, high extraction confidence, and most importantly, discretion. If this was a military training camp, it would be observed, catalogued, and, if necessary, erased. The forested moon had no formal designation. It was one of dozens orbiting a gas giant in the ragged fringe of Sector Q-17, a quiet pocket of stars too resource-poor to mine, too insignificant to hold, and just important enough to bicker over. It had one known anomaly, breathable air, and a thriving coniferous biosphere, human-suitable. The recon craft penetrated orbit under full cloak, scattering its signature through orbital debris and sensor ghosts. It touched down between 2 ridgelines, dark rock, thick canopy, low thermal bleed. Perfect cover. Ghost Pattern 9 deployed within 90 seconds. 6 operatives, all Escher, armored in refractive stealth plating and equipped for zero-profile forest maneuvering. Their brief was clear: confirm the presence of the base, identify tactical structure, locate command units, and report. No contact, no interference, no mistakes. The forest was quiet but alive. Native avians called in triplets. Wind rustled thick, glossy-leafed branches. The moon smelled faintly of resin and loam. And then the squad heard them. Voices, again young but firm. The same clipped tone. The same structure. Rendezvous at marker Delta. Team Gamma takes South Trail. Watch for traps. Repeat, practice traps only. No spike pits this time. A pause. A third voice chimed in. Last time doesn't count, it was an accident. There was more laughter. Then a whistle. Not random, coded, sharp 2-beat. Another answered from the opposite ridge. The squad froze. The recon commander, Traskvar, tapped 2 fingers on his communicator. Universal Escher code for observation only. They moved closer, dropping prone behind underbrush dense with pollen and soft needles. What they saw stopped them. Approximately 20 humans, all uniformed, matching earth-tone clothing with patches on the shoulders and decorative sashes across the chest. They wore boots, utility belts. Some had wide-brimmed hats. All were under 1.6 meters in height. Children, human juveniles. But they moved in formation. 2 groups circled a perimeter. One group was assembling a temporary structure using collapsible poles and cordage. Another was lighting a controlled fire inside a ring of stones with surprising speed and coordination. No guards, no automated defenses, but order, structure, protocol. One Escher operative shifted slightly for a better angle and triggered a small rustle of leaves. Across the clearing, a scout snapped his fingers. Another blew a 3-tone whistle. Within seconds, the perimeter patrols halted, reorganized, and began a search grid pattern. Traskvar exhaled silently through his respirator. This was not random behavior. This was military discipline. primitive but precise. The humans didn't seem afraid. They didn't even appear suspicious. They were performing a drill. Traskvar recorded a short burst of video, then whispered to his second, Velek. "This is not a civilian group." Velek nodded once. The humans continued their activities. A chalkboard was produced. A human adult, taller, older, with a strange, wide smile, began briefing one group under a tarp canopy labeled Patrol Schedule. One of the youths adjusted the angle of a solar panel while humming. Another section of juveniles was assembling what appeared to be a simple obstacle course ropes, tire swings, logs. Crude but well-spaced, markers were staked at exact intervals. Traskvar crouched lower, reviewing the footage. Fire team coordination, structured units, rapid response, code signaling. He paused. "They're organized," he said quietly. "Too organized." No one argued. The first sign something was wrong came precisely 22 minutes after perimeter observation began. Operative Kelvash, positioned at the southern ridge under deep visual camouflage, reported movement near his sector rustling, inconsistent wind displacement, and what he described as deliberate stepping patterns, heavy on the heel. Then his transmission cut out mid-sentence. There was no burst of static, no shout, no comms scramble, just clean severance, like a line had been cut with surgical intent. His locator pinged once, then stopped. Traskvar didn't react outwardly. He issued a silent signal to Velek and motioned toward the ridge. Velek relayed instructions to the rest of Ghost Pattern 9. "Do not engage. Maintain line of sight. Focus, sweep, and retrieve." It was assumed Kelvash had simply repositioned and encountered a brief signal shadow. Unlikely, but possible. The terrain was uneven, the canopy thick. 3 minutes later, Operative Dervak's locator beacon began to flicker. When Velek reached the location, what he found was, in official terminology, non-standard. Dervak was suspended 2 meters off the ground in a net of braided paracord, arms and legs immobilized, weapons still strapped to his shoulder. The net was hung from a makeshift branch harness, using low-friction climbing rope. At the base of the tree, someone had placed a small laminated card. It read, "Good effort. Try again next time," in English, with a smiley face. Dervak was unharmed, conscious, and extremely upset. His only words through the reactivated comlink were, "They took my boots." Extraction required 20 minutes and 2 blades. The rope was high grade, factory human make, tagged with a serial number and something called Adventure Pro. While this occurred, Operative Vesh, the squad's infiltration specialist, went dark. Surveillance feeds later confirmed her final moments of freedom, approaching what appeared to be a narrow forest trail, low traffic. A flag marker made of twigs and colored cloth lay nearby. As she stepped onto the trail, the ground shifted. Her boot activated a pressure trigger, hidden under pine needles and an unsettling amount of glitter. A concealed counterweight dropped from a branch, triggering a low-tension snare that whipped her clean off her feet. The feed ended with Vesh being yanked backward into a tarp labeled Observation Post, watched by a child holding a clipboard and stopwatch. At this point, Traskvar requested aerial recon. The microdrone was deployed at low altitude, designed to be invisible to standard human sensors. It streamed low-orbit video through filtered light and thermal passives. What it recorded became Exhibit 1 in the subsequent inquiry. Children, dozens of them, not idle, not playing, operating. One group was engaged in what appeared to be a coordinated tracking exercise. 2 of the scout units moved through the trees at speed, avoiding obstacles, leaving no trail. One stopped, pointed toward the canopy, and whispered. The other looked up, spotted the drone, smiled, then raised a mirror and flashed it at the camera with surgical precision. The drone's feed cut out. Traskvar ordered an immediate regroup. Only 4 of the 6 were still responsive. Velek and Dervak returned. Vesh remained missing. Kelvash's signal had not returned. Operative Threx had not reported since entering the eastern ravine, which was now flagged as hostile controlled terrain. Traskvar proceeded alone toward the ravine. What he found defied several sections of his operational handbook. A clearing had been established, a semicircle of flat earth ringed with painted stones. In the center, a campfire burned safely inside a perimeter of sand. Logs had been positioned as seats. Upon those logs sat Kelvash, Threx, and Vesh. All were zip-tied with what Traskvar later described as precision knotwork, inconsistent with their captor's supposed age range. Each was tied differently, square knot, bowline, figure 8, and each had been color-coded with small flag markers. A sign above the fire read, "Tactical Team Building Circle, no talking unless you have the talking stick." A young human, no older than 14, was distributing hot cocoa in biodegradable cups. When Traskvar attempted to approach, another child, this one slightly taller and wearing something labeled Junior Patrol Leader, tapped a stick to the ground twice. Two more youths emerged from the brush and executed what could only be described as a well-timed lateral flanking motion, complete with hand signals and angle coverage. Traskvar retreated. As he moved, he activated passive audio surveillance. What he captured was catalogued under Morale Warfare Acoustic Variant. A rhythmic chant began, low and steady. "We are scouts, strong and free, trained for trail and victory. Watch the woods, track the night, learn to tie and learn to fight." It continued, harmonized, rehearsed. Traskvar did not pause to record further. He moved fast, sticking to the shadows, switching from combat protocols to exfiltration pattern Theta Gold. It took him 48 minutes to return to the LZ. The recon craft had been untouched. His signal to orbit was clean. Before departing, he triggered a final pass from the secondary drone, set to wide-angle capture. It caught one last image. A flag-raising ceremony. Human children standing in formation, matching uniforms, the same chants, the same discipline. One scout, a girl no older than 13, performed what analysts later described as an improvised takedown involving a hiking pole, a tensioned tarp, and gravity manipulation via tree limb leverage. The subject was not injured. The child earned applause. Traskvar did not wait to see more. His departure signal carried a 2-line report. "Hostile human commando training site confirmed. Request immediate tactical reassessment. Target group appears to be pre-adult. Filed under Human Special Forces Youth Variant." The Escher Rapid Response Corvette dropped into low orbit precisely 3 hours and 12 minutes after Commander Traskvar's exfiltration ping. Standard deployment protocols were activated. Tactical Unit 17B deployed via drop sleds and aerial infiltration harnesses with full gear and biometric armor, fanned out in a 6-point recon sweep, and reached the forest floor within 7 minutes of arrival. The commanding officer, Captain Veltok, issued a pre-landing warning to all units: expect human irregulars. Age classification unknown. Assume camouflage. Assume deception. Assume traps. There was no need. The forest was silent. The designated coordinates, previously flagged by Traskvar's drone as the central base of operations, were empty, not cleared, not destroyed, empty. No humans, no shelters, no signs of violence. Just the remains of a campfire, a blackened circle of stones neatly swept, with no smoke and no heat. 2 concentric rings of ash marked where logs had been used as seating. A third ring, made from smooth river stones, indicated a formal perimeter. It had been disassembled, then reassembled perfectly, before abandonment. Scattered around the clearing were footprints, hundreds of them, all human, all small. Some led toward the tree line, some looped back. All were clean. No drag marks, no struggle. The impressions suggested a slow, methodical withdrawal, coordinated. The thermal scans returned nothing. No lingering tech. No comm signals. No electromagnetic bleed. Not even battery residue. The supplies were gone. The makeshift shelters, the obstacle course, the training dummies, all removed. Rope was coiled and hung from a low branch, tied off in regulation loops and labeled with small paper tags that read, "Inventory complete." One sign remained. It was staked into the earth beside a wooden flagpole built from scavenged tree limbs, lashed together with taut cordage. No flag flew above it now, but a faded imprint of something circular, possibly a camp emblem, remained in the cloth that fluttered faintly in the wind. The sign read, "Camp Orion, Week 2, Wilderness Defense. See you next year." The lettering was bold and cheerful, written in some kind of synthetic paint that fluoresced faintly under the team's scanners. Beneath the message was a crudely drawn emblem, a smiling cartoon compass winking. Captain Veltok stood before the sign for several full seconds. He blinked all 4 eyes. Then he muttered, "They packed up." A junior officer scanning the perimeter added helpfully, "Thoroughly." An aerial drone sweep confirmed the rest. 8 kilometers of tree line, multiple heat sink zones, dozens of faint depressions in the earth consistent with tent posts, all removed. 2 portable latrine pits properly covered and flagged. A compost pile. A small cache of labeled, unopened juice cartons placed near a note that read, "For the next group, good luck." There was no damage, no fire, no trash, just departure. The footage was transmitted to ElevenLabs Command within 40 minutes. Analysis teams flagged several anomalies. All communications intercepted from the site, previously analyzed as encoded field commands, were reclassified as standard youth activity phrasing, a human subcultural dialect known as scout speak. The phrase badge qualification, once assumed to be combat certification, was now believed to refer to an award system based on non-lethal survival and cooking proficiency. Still, no explanation was provided for the advanced restraint techniques, coordinated patrols, or synchronized unit maneuvers. One analyst wrote in the margin of the incident report, "I don't know if I'm terrified or impressed." The speech pattern review confirmed a chilling consistency. All vocal samples matched the age range of 12-15 Earth years. GC lexicon cross-referenced voice signatures with known broadcast media. The cadence was not formal military. It was not mercenary. It was rehearsed, practiced. It was cheerful. HFY Command called an emergency closed-door session to assess Operation Orion anomaly. The resulting brief was short, terse, and included phrases such as strategically anomalous, tactically improbable, and behaviorally inconsistent with acceptable subadult logic. When questioned about the threat level, Command's final statement was, "We cannot conclusively prove they are hostile. We can only confirm that they won." Requests to reclassify the operation under standard treaty warfare parameters were denied. Instead, an internal memo was circulated across all ElevenLabs high-risk operational branches. Effective immediately, all recon operatives are advised to treat unregistered human juvenile gatherings as potential irregular militia units, unless proven otherwise. Visual confirmation of matching uniforms, sashes, or coordinated song activity should be considered a Class 2 tactical indicator. The GC Human Observation Handbook received a quiet update. A new entry appeared at the bottom of Section 4.3 Unusual Cultural Behaviors. Note: human youth organizations may display military-grade coordination, survival skills, and morale-based psychological disruption techniques. Do not underestimate any group of humans wearing matching sashes. The final incident report was filed under Unregulated Human Subadulthood Training Programs, Strategic Implications. It included no confirmed kills, no technological assets, no territorial loss. And yet, the file was sealed under red band clearance. Inside the Escher Recon Barracks, the surviving members of Ghost Pattern 9 returned to limited duty. Traskvar filed a request for reassignment to orbital logistics. His request was granted without comment. Dervak was seen carrying a mug labeled, "I survived Wilderness Defense Week and all I got was this mug and lifelong disbelief." In the weeks that followed, unconfirmed sightings of similar training camps were reported in 3 other sectors. None remained long enough to be fully investigated. But every one of them left behind the same calling card. A staked sign, a footprint trail, and the faint smell of toasted marshmallows.
Want more GC madness? Pick up the book. Tales from the GC is packed with stories you won't find anywhere else. Available on Amazon right now on Kindle and paperback. The link is in the description.